Welcome to Diva's Two Cents. I'm Diva Mejias, and we log on every Friday. Soon the show will be called Diva Mejias Live, giving her 2 cents. But for now, I'm excited that we're here today. I have gotten so many messages from you asking me whether that you're going to start a business, asking me what do I mean when I say numbers tell stories. Well, numbers do tell stories, ladies and gentlemen, because when you're starting a business or whether you're already in business, you should know what your numbers are, meaning you should know, have goals, have revenue goals, expense goals, cost plan goals. You should know what those numbers, what that you're anticipating those numbers be and what they are. So today, what I wanted to do is share with you um, an expert in business planning that can help you understand what those numbers mean. Today, my guest here is BC Clark. Hold on 1 second. BC, how are you?
I'm awesome. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Let me fix you here so I can see you better, okay?
Okay,
How's that?
that's awesome.
So, how are you, my friend?
I'm really good.
Okay, so
Doing
let's
good.
talk.
Thank you so much.
BC, yeah, BC Clark from the Business Connection. So, talk to me,
Yes.
BC. Everybody wants to know what does Diva mean when Diva says that they should know their numbers. What is she talking about?
Well, when you say you should know your numbers, you should. You should be on top of your financials. You should be on top of even your credit report, right? When we talk about starting a business, there's things that we need to do ahead of time before we can get to that point of actually starting that business. And so, when you think about that, there's always questions that they should be asking. You know, why do I want to start this business? Am I prepared to start a business? Do I need more information on the industry that I want to go into? So there's a lot of questions that should be answered before we actually dive into a business. So, for instance, I have a short, we have some slides, but we don't have to use those because I think we can talk through this. But the very first thing I always tell individuals is that, if you're thinking of starting a business and just say that that business is going to start a year from today, well, there's a whole lot of things we need to get done so that we're ready to actually start that business. So we first of all want to at least look and say, okay, what do I need in case I want to start a business? What is it? What should I be thinking about right now? Well, the first thing I would think is that you're going to check and see, do I know what type of business I want to start? Am I coming from a hobby, a side hustle to move into a business, or is this something I'm starting from scratch? Because if they're already doing something in a hobby, which a lot of times that's what people decide, I'm going to make this a business. Um, then they say, well, I want to make money because a hobby, you're putting money into that, and you're not really expecting a return. It's just something you love doing.
Mm-hmm,
If
mm-hmm.
it's a side hustle, then you're moved from that hobby phase. Now you're over in the side hustle phase, whereas you're getting money, so you're selling items or whatever that might be, and now you're seeing your revenue come in. And so after doing that for maybe 6 months, a year, and you decide, well, you know what? I think I want to start a business. So I'll check out my credit, make sure my credit is intact just in case I don't have that money internally or within my bounds. Do I need to borrow money? And if I do, what does that look like? So you want to start getting everything in order. The other thing is that how passionate are you about wanting to start this business? Because when you start a business, there's hats that you should wear. So I always tell people, if you don't have the education you need to go into that industry, maybe that's not time yet because you do need to do some research, and a lot of people don't do that. And once you get that research and perhaps decide why you want to start this business, now you start laying out a plan. It's still not time to go run and start it, but now you want to start a plan. Start planning, the business. Okay, where am I gonna? What kind of business is it? Do I need a storefront? Is it online? All of these things have to be answered, a lot of questions. And so you want to take your time and really start asking. This is when the questions come in. And if you know someone else in business that you trust, you can talk to them and say, I'm thinking about starting a business. And then have them talk a little bit about maybe what they've gone through, if they've been in business a year or so. How was it for them when they started? What things did they have to do differently just to make sure they made that shift? And I always say, what people normally forget about after they've planned and they see where they want to go, take about 3 to 6 months of networking, because you need to start letting people know that I have a business, I'm going to start a business or whatever, and you start making those connections. I always tell people I'm a master connector. You may meet me, but I'm going to introduce you to 35 people. That's just how it works. And so you want to start those connections early, so by the time you're ready in a year to launch your business, when you send out your invitations to all the people that you've met during this networking, now you have 50 people showing up at your grand opening. And it's nothing like having a grand opening and nobody shows up because they don't know you're there. I've
You're
seen that
right.
happen. So you
You're
want to
right.
make sure that you're doing things in order. And it's really important to do that. You know, check your credit, make sure that's intact. Check your finances. Do I have what I need to start the business, or do I need to start looking at if how to prepare to maybe get a business loan, or maybe if there's friends or family that would be willing to support you. Um, Friends and family would probably be easier than trying to go and get a small business loan, but and it's really hard sometimes when you're just starting out. Banks are a little leery. They don't have any historical data on you, so they're not really wanting to give you any money. However, we do have other resources around, like CDFIs, that are usually there to help people to get started sometimes. And even if maybe they've had trouble in the past and they have to correct some things, they'll go ahead and start loaning them money. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the thing though is that you have to remember, and I always say these are key things. Once you get started in that business, there's some things that should happen. And number one, you have to be disciplined, okay? Because if you want the revenue to come in and do that, there are certain things you have to do. Number one, please, be consistent. So if you say I open up at 8 in the morning and I'm there till 5, open up at 8 and close at 5. Because the one thing that people will get turned off is that they go this week and you're open at 8. The next week they go, you don't come in till 10. The place is not open. And so those inconsistencies will turn your clients away, turn your
Mm-hmm.
customers away.
Right.
So start thinking about that. It's not like you're going as an employee. You're now an owner, a business owner. So let's talk about that, because those things, and plan well. I always say plan to plan to plan to plan, because if you don't plan at all, you plan to fail.
Okay.
And we've
So
seen numerous businesses
yeah.
that
So for
fail.
the business owners, and I've got about 8 of them that sent me the same question. Believe it or not, I started looking at that question, and it was about those numbers, because I'm always saying numbers tell stories. And I really want you, if you're interested in getting into business, it's just not a matter of throwing money into a hobby or throwing money into something. You have to have a roadmap. I don't leave my
Yes.
house to go somewhere without putting my GPS, getting my GPS and
Mm-hmm.
aligning my GPS to where I'm going so that I don't get lost or I take the
Right.
fastest route. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
That's what
when
we
it
actually
comes,
call, sorry, not to
okay,
cut you off, but that's what we call the business plan, your roadmap, right? And
right.
there's different phases of that roadmap that you're following.
Right. So many people don't, and I have clients that are in business that have been in business for a while and they didn't even have a business plan to start. So
Mm-hmm.
so I guess what I'm trying to get at today is when I talk about the numbers, those numbers are somewhere. They're not on the ceiling, they're not on the floor. They should be put somewhere. And those numbers
Right.
can be put to life if you start your business plan. Now, BC, you coach a lot of entrepreneurs, startups. And what in your opinion or in your experience have you found has been the biggest hurdle when you talk about when you start with the business plan and you say, okay, give me projection, give me. I mean, what is it that's the biggest hurdle for someone that has is just starting a business and has never made a business plan, and now you're sitting with
Mm-hmm.
them to start one?
Mm-hmm. Now, and of course, there's several different components of that business plan. The one that it gives them the most problems is when they get to the financials, when they're trying to do cash flow statements, or when they're trying to come up with projections. And anytime that, and that's usually when I usually have people come to me and says, I need to do a 12-month cash flow for the bank, and I need to do a 3-year projection, but I'm just starting. And they always say, why do they expect me to have that and I'm just starting? Well, there is a way to create even your 12-month cash flow and your 3-year projections without financial historical data. And usually when they come to me, that's what we do. And basically, if they understand their product, they know what they charge for that product, they know what they expect to have, because here's the thing: you have a revenue goal. But when you open up that business, before you do, you say, okay, I want to make this much a month. Okay. And so you have certain items. Let's just say we have 5 items. And from those 5 items, we expect to come up with 15,000 a month. Okay. So from that, we can say, okay, so because I'm doing these things will bring in 15,000 a month. Means I'm making anywhere from 3 to 5 per week. Okay, so during that month I've got 15,000. So we project that. We say, okay, so by your assumptions and what have you, we're going to create 12-month cash flow. So in the first part of the year, my business is really big. I get a lot of money. But at the last part of the year, things slow down. So I can start off and say I have 15,000. I want to make 15,000 these first 6 months. But in the last 6 months, that's going to go down. I may only be making like maybe 8,000 a month or 7,000. So you put that in your 12-month cash flow. So by doing that, at the end of that year, it tells you how much gross will be, what your net profit would be. You also have to make sure you're subtracting out whatever cogs, the cost of goods that you sold.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people say, well, I don't need those. I don't. I say, well, that's part of the whole. That's part of everything. So there is, you do have cost of goods sold, and so by doing that, we can create historical data that we don't have. But you see, we just looked at what we projected we wanted to make or what we could make based on our items that we have. And now we have 12 months of cash flow statement that we can use. Now, from that 12-month cash flow statement, we can then go ahead and do some a 3-year projection based on what we said we can make in the first year. And
Mm.
so a lot of times that's what we have to do when you're a startup. And so those numbers don't come out the sky. They have to come from somewhere. And so a lot of times when they come, they say, well, I don't know why they want me to have that. They want you to have that because they want you to know your product. They want you to know what you're charging for your product. Because if you don't know that, then how you, I mean, what are you, what are you looking for? So remember that you lay out your pricing. So if you're a daycare, daycares, yeah, and daycares make pretty good money. So sometimes you're making 55,000 a month, in a daycare, and you can project that by the number of kids you have. So there's infants, there's this age, there's that age, and there's prices on all those heads. And so if you have like 25 kids, then you're saying, okay, this is what I expect to have. I have 25 kids. This is what I'm charging. And so I know each month this is what's going to come in. Of course, you have other things like there may be food substances that you get from, different places and stuff like that. So they don't just come out. And you're right, Diva, those numbers are important because if you don't know those, then that puts you in a bad light for what you expect to happen. And if
Right.
you don't have a goal for revenue, then then why are you in business?
Right, right. So in what you do for a living, what do you see the trends are? What do you see that service that you provide for business plans for the new entrepreneurs looking like in a couple of years, and at least 5 years from now? You see it.
If they actually, and I got to tell you, there are some really savvy young entrepreneurs out there that kind of know their numbers. They're really on top of things, which
Mm-hmm,
is awesome. The
mm-hmm,
other thing too is that um, if you have experience for some things and you're consulting with them, sharing that information really helps too because they're trusting you, and if they follow some of the things that you're telling them, they can go ahead and be successful. I've mentored individuals that didn't, that they were here. And now when I look at them, they're like way ahead. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that's always feels good. But sometimes you have to listen at what people, you don't know. None of us know everything. And I do have some of those clients that know everything. You can't tell them anything, and all you can do is just let them go. But the ones who really want to be successful, they want to stay on top of the game. They're going to continue to look at things, the trends, because that's important. Because even you do, when you look at trends every day, I do too. I have to look at things, trends in the industry. What's changing? What do I need to make sure I learn about so I can be more of a success for my clients? And
Mm-hmm.
so we all learn all the time. So I think what happens when people get complacent and thinking, okay, I got it now, so I don't need to do anything, that's when I think they lose.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If you're an entrepreneur out there, and I'm going to put this out, I haven't asked BC yet, so I'm going on a limb here. But if you're an entrepreneur out there that has a service or sells a product, and you would like a one-on-one little uh, time with BC Clark and or myself, um, put it in the chat. Reach out to us. BC, you have a TV show, do you not? What is the name of your TV show?
Oh, it's called the Business Connection.
The Business Connection.
Yes,
Just see, the
yes, and
Business
I interview
Connection.
business owners across the state, and I honor, also interview individuals, business owners that are out of state that come in and say, "Hey, I heard about this, and I want an interview with you." So
Okay, so the very
that's a good.
first person that sends us your name, if you're a business owner and you have a product to sell or you have a service to provide, the very first person that sends us your name, and I think it's BC at thebusinessconnectionni.com.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm going to put it in the chat. I want the very first person that sends an email to Miss BC Clark. She will set a schedule to interview you on her show,
Yeah,
and I will be
yeah,
a guest there as well, so that I can be there, so we both can be there to support you. Okay, so
yes, that would be
no,
amazing.
so that would be perfect. So I just want everybody to know that if you are in business already, great. You still need to know
Yeah,
your numbers. If you're starting a business, you need to lay the foundation. You just don't go build a home with your bricks or your wood and you don't put a foundation down. And what BC Clark offers through the Business Connection is she offers business plans to help you set up your business plan. Very important, very very important, because she not only just it's this is not just you go. She prepares the business plan for you. This is something you do together. You work together on this, right, BC?
that's correct.
And by the
That is
time, yeah,
correct.
by the time they're done with you, do they know some of their numbers or their projected numbers?
Yeah, they know some of their numbers. And in fact, they're like, "Oh, I didn't know it was this easy." And so sometimes they just don't know. The other thing, to me, the foundation of any business before you start is understanding. I call it a tribe, but your bail, the banker, your accountant, your insurance, and legal. Those are like key things. And these are not people that you hire. You know what I mean? To be on your staff, obviously, but they are relationships that you need when you start your business. So those are things that are important as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I call them bail because they gotta bail you out when you get in trouble.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I use that term all the time. Absolutely. Well, we are already in November. They only have 2 months before the end of the year. What do you say to an entrepreneur or a loving individual that comes to you and says, "I want to start a business. Shall I wait till January? Shall I do it now? What do I do now?" I mean, how long does it take for a business plan to be in full swing?
Well, I think if someone came to me and honestly say, "Hey, I wanna start my business in January," I would say, let me see what you have, because if they just come and they say, "I'm ready to start," and usually I get that, um, but they're not. They're not ready to start. They're not ready. And sometimes they'll say, "I already started my LLC." And then I was like, "Okay, do you have a business plan?" "Well, no, I'm going to do that later." "Okay, so are we going to do that now, or what?" So sometimes I think uh, people do think that they don't have to. "Well, so and so told me I don't need a business plan." "Okay, and it's their choice to do whatever they want. But I think that, it takes time. It's just, you can't just say in 2 months, I'm going to open up. I mean, they can if that's what they want to, but if they haven't done any research, they don't know anything about the industry they're going into, they haven't looked at trends. Because the thing, too, is that if they haven't done any research, they may be starting a business that may end in a year. So you want to find out what the longevity is for that industry. How is it looking? You look outside, you'll see daycares, you'll see technology that are, they're saying, oh, they're going to be great all the way to 2030. Well, suppose they're starting something that doesn't have any life to it. You started and then next year it's declined. So you can find out that information by just doing your research. So don't
Right.
start something that's going to end and you haven't even got started yet.
And
And that does
especially
happen.
now, especially today. I mean, we are, and regardless of what political affiliation you decide to go with, okay,
That's right.
numbers are not Republican and numbers are not Democrat. Okay, numbers are numbers. So know your numbers so that regardless of what party takes over, you can
That's
know
right.
what to do with your numbers and know which way to
That's
sway.
right.
So it's very, very important. I know that some of you already know your numbers, so I don't want. I'm not talking down on anybody. There was a point in time when I didn't know my numbers, and I thought I did. So it's never too late to uh, go to someone who can help you understand what those numbers mean from a business plan perspective, and go there coachable. Go there with a
Mm-hmm.
mindset of I don't know anything. And when you do that, you are able to learn, or rather, it reinforces what you already know, and then you
Yes.
learn what you didn't know because what you didn't know is what hurts you. Am I correct?
You, yeah. And something you say all the time too is that numbers do tell stories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, numbers tell stories,
Mm-hmm.
and if you take those numbers that are not accurate or whatever to the banker, they know right away. And so you want to make sure that you keep on. And if you don't have a financial system to track your business, uh, file it. Get you a good um, program developed in Excel, so you know what's coming in and what's going out. Or QuickBooks, if you can afford that, get QuickBooks. That's a really good financial system for a startup. And some people have been using that for 5 or 6 years in their business. So until you get to that point where you're so big that that doesn't work for you, use something that tracks everything that you're doing so that your financials, if you need a report, you can get it. Remember during the pandemic, so many people didn't have their reports, they didn't have any financials, and they weren't able to take opportunity in some of the things that were being, offered at that time. So do it right. I always say, if you're going to start shoveling the snow, start at one end and get all the way to the other end. Don't just stop in the middle and say, I've done it. Right, Diva? I mean,
Yeah,
know
yeah.
your numbers,
I've
know
learned.
why you're doing it, have
Mhm.
some compassion behind it, and put it in order so that you can be successful.
Yeah, I happen to be in a mentoring program, and for the past probably about a month, I would say, I started a project. And it really kicked my rear end where wow, I can't do this. I don't understand. But just like you said, if it's snowing, you're going to take a shovel, right? But the shovel is the
Yeah,
tool, right?
that's right.
You need to, and I could tell you go buy a hammer, but and to build a home, but unless you know how to use that hammer, be careful. So if you don't know the program QuickBooks, don't just go out buy a QuickBooks program and think that those numbers are going to tell the story that you want it to tell. So let's get real here. It's just a tool. You really need to
Yes,
understand what the numbers what stories they're going to tell you so that when you do go in there and produce a report, you can
yes,
actually look at it and say, well, this one doesn't look right. And, I can't have a minus in the bank. I mean, I'm overdrawn by that much, So yeah, it's good to
yes,
have the tools in your toolbox, but it's more
hmm,
important to know what those tools, how to use those tools. And to
right.
BC's point, if you're going to start something, you should complete it, and that's one thing that I've learned, and I put to practice with this project that I was working on. I started it, and I have another coach that says, confidence is the ability to take something and put it through to its conclusion. So when I started it, it was a little difficult. I was like, man, this looks so easy to do. Oh, I'll just put it to the side. And then I realized you can't do that. If you want to be successful in life, you've got to say, I'm going down this road, and as difficult as it may be, I'm going to get to the end. So
Yes.
when you're doing that, it's there's nothing wrong with extending a hand out to someone that you see on that road, or if you're the one on that
Mm-hmm.
road, to reaching out to somebody else's hand and saying, BC
Yeah,
Clark, I
absolutely.
need you. Diva, I may need you, or so and so, I may
Yeah.
need you. So we're not trying to sell you anything here, just trying to
No.
help you understand the concept that numbers tell
Right.
stories, that the service that BC Clark at the Business Connection provides is crucial to the success of that startup that you have or that you want to have. So just please, please, just like you said, you send me questions, and I make sure that I try to incorporate your answers within the program every Friday I go on at 4 o'clock. And if they have technical problems, and we did have a little technical problem, so I do want to have a shout out there to Don Pakula who came to my rescue. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Life is not perfect. Life is not perfect,
Yes.
and you don't
It's
have to
not.
be perfect to be strong. So BC,
That's
you
right.
want to give us a last tidbit here for the audience? Other than that, whoever sends you their name to that email, bcthebusinessconnection.ne.com, you'll be able to interview them on your show.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That'd be
What
awesome.
tidbit do you
Well,
give?
I think I'm sorry. Go ahead, Diva. I didn't
What,
mean to.
how would you like to? What would you like to tell the audience to leave them
Well,
with?
I think yeah, I think that study things that before. Don't just jump in. We have you ever seen somebody that jumped in a swimming pool that couldn't swim? They just sank to the bottom. So take your time, get the information you need on the industry. So do your research, spend some time, write, take notes so you have notes, and making sure that this is something you want to do. So decide, and then start putting things in place, checking out your credit. Finding what the trend is. What is this industry that's going to be continually moving up the next 10 years, or what have you? Spend the time to do that, because if you can plan it accordingly, you can make it happen. And I always say, if you can see it and believe it, you can definitely receive it. So don't think that, and no one, is great. You know what I mean? No one is all powerful. They know everything. They get everything right. There are ups and downs, but you don't just stop. You keep going. Just
Thank
keep
you.
going, and believe in yourself that you can make it happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are so right. And for those of you, and like I said, I air every Friday at 4 o'clock. I want you to share this. There's somebody out there that needs to hear this. And maybe some of you are listening and saying, I don't need to hear this. But someone out there needs to hear this. And I also want to offer that I'm going to have an upcoming series, a webinar series. It's going to be called The Three-Step Solution to Understanding Your Debt, because a lot of you are still in debt, and we only have 2 months left for the end of the year. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
want you to get into any more debt to buy things for people that you don't even
Yes.
care for. So I want to help you.
True.
So if that's
Yeah.
something that interests you, also send me a DM, reach out to me. The three-step solution to get out of debt. It's going to be coming up soon, and I hope that you all join me in this venture. BC Clark, as always,
Yes.
it's a pleasure. Thank you, my dear.
Always, Diva.
Thank you. Thank you. You take care.
Thank you.
Bye bye. And that, my friend, is Diva Susa.